and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we're so glad to have you here. We're back at the Statehouse in Trenton, talking with lawmakers from both the Senate and the Assembly. They are debating and discussing some hot-button issues. Governor Murphy signed off on an overhaul of the state's affordable housing system. The legislation ends the court-ruled system that in the past has overseen affordable housing construction. It also abolishes the Council on Affordable Housing. Now the Department of Community Affairs will make these decisions.
So this is a victory that I think you could say literally is decades in the making. With this legislation, which I will be signing into law in a few moments, we're going to significantly streamline the process for advancing affordable housing development across our state. Because ensuring that every family has a safe, dignified place to call home, where parents can safely raise their children, and where senior citizens can live out their golden years, those are cornerstones of the American dream. And affordable housing has been a central public policy challenge in New Jersey for nearly a half a century. This is again 49 years ago, the New Jersey Supreme Court held in a landmark ruling that every municipality must, and I quote them, make realistically possible an appropriate variety and choice of housing. The court went on to say that the towns cannot stand in the way of opportunities for low and moderate income housing. The principle became known, as we all know, as the Mount Laurel Doctrine. And to this day, it is studied by law students and lawyers all across our nation. For decades, all three branches of government have wrestled with how to apply the principles of Mount Laurel in practice. At times, our state legislature has tried to address the issue. At other times, the process for determining affordable housing obligations was left to an executive branch agency. But more recently, over plus or minus the past 10 years, this process is played out in the courts through litigation. In fact, some estimate that our state is facing a shortage of more than 200,000 affordable housing units. In other words, we need to keep building, we need to do it equitably, and we need to do it fast. So as we look to how we determine our affordable housing obligations over the next 10 years and beyond, we can't be satisfied with the status quo. Over the past few months, my administration has worked closely with our legislative partners to craft a new process where all three branches of government are involved. And with the main bill that I'm signing in a few moments, we're going to establish clear rules for how municipal affordable housing obligations should be calculated. It incorporates the standards that courts have used that have proved valuable in practice and workable in practice. And this legislation will give municipalities bonus credits as well for constructing affordable housing where it is needed most, like near transit hubs, which is a huge obsession of ours, or for providing housing for vulnerable populations, as an example, our senior citizens. Under the rules of this legislation, we will bring greater efficiency to the process by having the Department of Community Affairs run the numbers. Towns will then have the freedom to come up with plans to meet those numbers. And if there's a dispute, it will be handled through a mediation program run by the courts.
Lawmakers in Trenton passed the legislation despite opposition from Republicans and officials from some municipalities. So can you talk a little bit about this legislation? There are a number of pieces that are being brought to the floor today and explain a little bit about them.
Yeah, so look, the affordable housing bill is our opportunity. It's one of the seminal pieces of legislation that we will do. It's an opportunity for us to modernize our affordable housing rules based on the Mount Laurel Doctrine. We feel pretty confident based on the conversations we've had in caucus and with the groups that we've worked with that we're going to have a successful outcome today when the bill goes up to be voted upon. But essentially what we're doing is codifying the methodology that has been used since 2015. That has seen the mass production that we believe is still necessary to grow our affordable housing stock because the need is so great. So we feel pretty confident in that, and we're looking forward to the debate on the floor.
When people hear about Mount Laurel, insiders in Trenton, they understand that, but it's kind of complicated for people outside of the Statehouse to understand what it is at its essence, and it's more or less people have the right to be able to live in every community, and they should have the ability to live in any community, and there should be affordable housing. So can you talk a little bit about how it exists right now?
Well, the New Jersey Supreme Court opined years ago that all New Jerseyans have an opportunity to live throughout our state. And our obligation through all of these existing rounds, we're concluding the third round now. The work we're doing is getting preparation in June of 2025 for the fourth round, is to make sure that the tenets of that decision are actually codified and be able to move forward. So statutorily, sort of locking in that methodology that looks at prospective need for affordable housing is essential to making sure that we live up to the promise of that Supreme Court case, which is that everyone should be able to live in New Jersey anywhere they can afford.
There are some communities that get upset when they hear about affordable housing, and in the past there have been some type of trading and negotiating, and well, this town will give you a certain amount of credit so we don't have affordable housing. Does this legislation address that? What kind of happens behind the scenes when it comes to affordable housing, how much each town is required to have, and what sometimes some towns do to get around it?
Well, several years ago, the New Jersey legislature and then Governor Corzine abolished regional contribution agreements, which were opportunities for towns to basically pay their affordable housing obligation for other communities to take them over. We believe, frankly, that every community has an obligation to create affordable housing. We think the balance is making sure that it doesn't destroy the fabric of any one community, and we think the methodology that we're codifying that has been utilized for the last 8 years has not been up for debate. No community, no housing advocate, no builder, no developer has said that the methodology is wrong. So we feel pretty confident that we're starting from a good foundation, and we're going to be able to move that forward because we think it is really essential to ensure that we have clarity and we have a game plan that everyone can understand so that they can move forward with getting their numbers and actually getting on to building the affordable housing we need.
And now more than ever, just final thoughts on the need for affordable housing as everything is skyrocketing, the cost of groceries, everything. How big of a need is it in New Jersey?
Well, it's a major need, not just in New Jersey, all across our country. And frankly, we're still about 200,000 units short of the to meet our affordable housing obligation. But putting it more broadly, real estate in general, it's really a supply and demand thing. We're seeing prices skyrocket because at every level of the housing ecosystem, there just isn't enough inventory. So the ability to add more inventory will put downward pressure on pricing, as well as provide more opportunities for people to live all throughout New Jersey.
Do you feel that there's going to be bipartisan support on this, or do you expect a little back and forth on the floor today?
I always hope for bipartisan support. I think our government works best when we all come together and do it. But regardless of that, we're going to press forward, and I believe we'll have the opportunity to get that done.
Senator, a busy day in Trenton. One of the top items on the agenda I see is affordable housing. So can you talk a little bit about what's happening here today and where the Republican caucus stands on this?
Well, this is going to be a wholesale revision to the affordable housing legislation. And I think, in my opinion, and as well as the members of my caucus, feel that it'll have a direct negative impact on the communities across New Jersey. Today, we are going to codify a formula that nobody can tell us how many units are going to be required to be built. There's been no market analysis to determine whether or not the state can even absorb that many units, and we're moving forward with the legislation. Not to mention the fact that right now municipalities have immunities from builders' remedies. This legislation will change all that. So what'll happen now is if you miss just one of the benchmarks, a builder can immediately file for a builder's remedy and build density housing wherever they like. There's still no planning, no sound land use planning in this legislation. Nobody is looking at whether or not municipalities have the infrastructure to support the units. Nobody's looking at whether or not there's jobs available for the people that are going to live in them. Nobody's looking at whether or not there's mass transportation so that everybody that's living in these affordable units doesn't need to have a car. None of this stuff is taken into account in this legislation. All it's doing is jamming additional units, and I feel what's going to happen is you're going to find municipalities being forced to pave over open space, pave over farmland in environmentally sensitive areas, or, in the alternative, build high-density housing, which means, many stories right in the middle of a town, which will completely change the character of some of our communities.
And it's highly complex topic. It goes back to a Supreme Court ruling known as Mount Laurel, saying every municipality has an obligation to require X amount of affordable housing units. And you're saying we still don't know what that X factor is.
We don't, and we're going to codify a formula today that we don't know how many units it's going to require. And I just think that's foolish.
When I was talking to some of the Democrats, they're saying, well, we're short about 200,000 affordable housing units in the state. But what does that mean, to each municipality? And I guess maybe that's the question Republicans might have. You don't know what?
We don't know. I mean, some of these towns are what they call land poor, right? They don't have the land to support those number of units. Where are they going to put them? It's not making a lot of sense to me, and I think it's just going to exacerbate the problem that we already have with affordable housing. You're going to see additional court cases, which is going to cost taxpayers a whole bunch of money. It's just not going to solve the problem, I don't think.
And you have a number of towns that if there is an affordable housing unit that comes in, it's not that people are opposed to having affordable housing. Can you help me explain the side of it's about the strain on the resources, right? If, like, I live in West Amwell Township, people are concerned about how many units will come in. Will we be able to support our schools? What about the roads? How do we ensure that we're able to pay for all of these new families moving in?
Well, let me clarify one thing. Republicans do not object to affordable housing. We want all of our residents to be able to live in safe, clean, affordable housing. I mean, that's the goal. But we're now looking at a piece of legislation that may not even achieve that goal because of all of the additional problems that it's going to create.
I think that's kind of the point I was getting to. People who might oppose it might be looked at as, oh, well, you're anti, you don't want to help the disadvantaged. How do you get past that part of the discourse and that part of the discussion?
Well, look, I think, it's obvious. We're here trying to get amendments to the bill. We're not trying to stop it. We're trying to get amendments so that some of these problems, these unintended consequences, can be prevented before they get started. Everybody wants clean, affordable housing for our residents, so that's really not the issue.
The affordable housing bill is a total train wreck. It is 72 pages of the worst ideas on how to solve affordable housing that you could possibly put together. There's nothing in there virtually that I would support. It's a really bad piece of legislation, and unfortunately the state's going to pay the price for it.
And what do you think is going to happen as a result, because it is passing here, it's passing the Senate?
Yeah, it's going to ramp up the requirement to produce affordable units. Not just create the opportunity, which was the Supreme Court decision, but legitimately build these units. So it's going to force overdevelopment in our communities, and it's going to be devastating to some of these small towns.
In addition to affordable housing, lawmakers voted to increase the gas tax in New Jersey to help fund the Transportation Trust Fund. That vote went along party lines, with many Republicans objecting to any increase in taxes.
Roughly 20% of our nation's GDP flows through our entire region's roads, tunnels, bridges, and train tracks. In 2022 alone, our state transported more than 500 million tons of freight. And as many of our commuters will tell you from personal experience, we are also home to the busiest vehicular bridge on the entire planet, the George Washington Bridge. That is all to say that America depends on the strength of New Jersey's transportation system. If our infrastructure falls behind, our entire economy falls behind. And worst of all, our families would pay the highest price in the form of costly delays and missed opportunities. So this morning, with the legislation I'm going to sign into law in a few minutes, we're going to prevent that from happening. We're going to invest billions of dollars into New Jersey's Transportation Trust Fund so we can keep our transportation system in tip-top shape. This funding will cover the cost of maintenance and repairs for everything, from roads and highways to bridges and tunnels to railroads and runways, and yes, even those damn potholes. And moreover, and I think this is a very important feature of this legislation, we're also going to provide more direct financial support to our communities. with funding that is exclusively reserved for infrastructure projects at the county and municipal level in cities and towns all across New Jersey. So when I say that we're investing in every part of our transportation system, I literally mean it. You name it, from Route 1 to the back roads of rural Jersey and everything in between. And even better, this funding will help ease the burden of property taxes, because every dollar that the state spends on anything, but certainly infrastructure, at the local level, that's a dollar that our taxpayers get to save in their property taxes. Again, just like the state funds public education to the tune of double-digit billions of dollars, that's funding that local communities don't have to raise. Same thing goes for infrastructure. For a project locally that the state's paying for through the TTF, that's relief at the local level. Additionally, with this legislation, we're also meeting our responsibility to proactively and preemptively address the needs of New Jersey's families and communities. Why do I say that? Because the last time, you may recall, that the TTF was up for reauthorization, during that process, transportation projects all across the state were shut down for months. That's not happening. We got this done, and again, Diane and the legislative leaders deserve a lot of credit. We got this done before the last one expired, and that's been our objective all along.
Also in Trenton, the Senate and Assembly move forward with bills allowing the state to certify LGBTQ-owned businesses.
At this moment, we in the legislature have the opportunity to right those wrongs. For 2 years, under the governor's executive order, the LGBTQIA community-owned businesses have been able to certify with the state, and so far, 130 businesses have done so. What I've heard from the businesses community is that this certification is helpful for networking, for legitimacy, and for standing out in a highly competitive market. As an example, the New Jersey Pride Chamber of Commerce, since the certification process started, has increased their membership by 300%, attracting new attention and capital to our state. The certifications are good for state government and private sector analysts too, because trends specific to the LGBTQIA community can be better observed and addressed. The LGBT-owned businesses contribute $1.7 trillion to the United States economy. In New Jersey, there's no way to know. But ask me in 2 years after this bill passes, and then I'll have that data for you. And perhaps most important to us gathered here today, I'll also be able to tell you how much these businesses are contributing to our state's tax coffers. Well, I've heard some people say this bill gives handout to the LGBTQ community. I've read this bill over 5 times, and there is nothing in this bill that does anything like that.
You had some issues more about if there was any grit to some of the legislation passed today. So let's talk about what concerns you the most about what happened today on the Assembly floor.
Well, today we did a whole slew of terrible bills. So, I mean, it's hard to pick exactly which one bothers me the most. But just to answer your question, I get really bothered when we're doing things that don't move the needle, that don't actually make a difference. I mean, we're here to make a difference. And a lot of times we do things in this body that really don't actually help anybody. And that bothers me. You know, it might be nice to go around and glad hand people and say we did this, we did that. But if it's not going to really change people's lives, I don't like it. And that's my problem today.
One of the first things that you spoke out against was the LGBTQIA certification for small businesses. Can you tell us what that is intended to do and what you think it will or will not do?
Okay, so as written, the bill will create a certification process for LGBTQIA businesses, which, by the way, today can get certified in the Savvy database because of the executive order. So this will codify that designation. So as written is just a designation that allows a business to be in that database. Where it will lead was the second part of your question. It will one day lead to set-asides, I'm telling you. That is the ultimate goal of this piece of legislation. And people who were involved in helping push this said so much. I mean, women and minorities for a long time were in the database, had goal-based programs for them, but never had set-asides because there was a court decision that said they couldn't have set-asides without a demonstrated disparity. That disparity study's been completed, and so you're going to see stuff come out right now that creates set-asides for them. Well, the LGBTQIA community saw that and said, well, where's our study? Well, and part of the answer was, well, maybe we can't get the study if you're not in the database. And so this is all going to ultimately lead to that. Here's the deal. In the long term, we keep adding people who get preferential treatment. Nobody gets preferential treatment. So it's diluting the pool. And like I said here on the floor, and I hope people understand, I genuinely care a lot about all my constituents, whoever they are, and constituents who LGBTQIA also. I mean, I care about them. If there was a bill in here that would do a damn bit of good for them, I would be all over it. This is not the one.
You think it's probably just more to check a box to say, hey, look, we did support this, but there's no there there.
I think a lot of people in here voted for this to check that box and give the illusion that they're trying to support and help. And everybody here, I don't want to say, everybody here wants to do good. They want to do the right thing. But this bill doesn't do that. And that's why I feel compelled to stand up and say something, because I really want to do good. And I got a good heart. I hope you can see that and hear that in my voice. I do. I want to do good. That doesn't mean we have to vote on every piece of legislation that sounds good. We got to do the real work and make good law.
Outside the Senate and Assembly chambers, we met up with a different kind of power player, members from the Junior League and their State Public Affairs Committee. Victoria, on any given day, you never know who you're going to run into, Trenton, people, special interest groups, and different lobbyist groups and such. But tell me a little bit about the Junior League, why you all are here, and what it is that you represent.
So the Junior League, we advocate on behalf of women and children in the state of New Jersey. There are 8 junior leagues in the state, and so we're connected to come together to talk about various initiatives that support women and children. So any bill, not anything in particular, anything that we can do to help and support and bring about change.
What is it that you want people to know about the Junior League? If people are just tuning in and saying, oh, I didn't know the Junior League existed, how can I get involved? What issues in particular are you talking about? How can they get more information?
They can get more information by going to our website. So depending on your town or municipality, wherever you live, you can just go on the website. There's a Junior League in Summit, in Morristown, Elizabeth Plainfield, Bergen County. So the best thing is to just do a search. And we actually have the Junior, it's a national, multinational organization. And so our headquarters is in New York. So our reach is far and wide. We actually have a conference, a convention every single year. This year it's in New Orleans. And so we just get together and we look at best practices and how we can, work together in support of any initiative that helps the community.
Some people might have heard of the Junior League and they think, oh, that's just a social club for women. And they don't realize that there's a state public affairs committee that goes out. And you are very much involved in issues dealing with women, with children, with education. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So firstly, yes, we do get together, we do have some fun, and we do get together socially. But more importantly, we have community partnerships. I mean, for example, there's Grace, which supports food insecurity in Summit. And also we have Moms Helping Moms. And we also have the oldest, I want to say the retail store in Summit, which is the thrift store. And so it's based all on volunteers that bring their gently used outfits, and we support the community. So anyone is open to come. So I just want to say that yes, we do get together, we have fun. It is a social organization, but we do the good work in making sure that we give a voice to the voiceless and to ensure that everyone has a good, fair shot. So I enjoy the Junior League. If anyone is ever interested, they can just, I invite them to go on the website, just do a quick search and look for the Junior League in their own community. And again, we're nationwide, and any state, they can find the Junior League.
And there are different areas of interest that people can get involved with, whether it is social or it is getting involved with some of the legislative issues affecting your community.
Exactly right. So this year we're focused on 4 task forces. So we split our committee. Each of our delegates participate on a task force. So there's human trafficking, which is really huge nationwide, worldwide, mental health, food insecurity, as well as health equity in underserved communities. So those are the 4 main areas that we're focusing on. And again, any bill that is supporting women and children, that's what we're here to do, to support. And specifically with human trafficking, since it just recently became law, against the law in the state of New Jersey, that actually originated with one of our junior league members. They just saw an article several years ago, I want to say maybe over 10 years ago, saw an article in the newspaper and started to work with the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And so the Junior League, I'm proud to say, was very instrumental in bringing that to light, and it's ongoing. So there's current legislation that we would certainly advocate and support. And we're different from lobbyists. So we advocate and we support.
And that is what a lot of people might be surprised to hear, how you are involved in so many larger issues and you are working with legislators, those who represent you, and you're here in Trenton today talking to people and trying to educate them as well.
Absolutely. So I was fortunate today to be able to see all of my representatives. I'm in District 16, so I was able to see my senator and my 2 assembly people, and which is great, but also an opportunity to meet other assemblymen and women and to thank them for their service and to share the good work that we do with the Junior League.
And that will do it for today from Trenton, New Jersey. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.